Hello and welcome to How Not to Play, the channel where I play Pokemon badly. With a brand new game to explore and the new Pokemon TCG base set Mega Evolutions, I figured why not try another Packlocke? For those unfamiliar with my previous Packlocke videos, this is where I try a conventional Nuzlocke playthrough where I will not be using items in battle, I will not be going over the level of the next boss battle, and if a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and cannot be used for the rest of the game. With the additional rule of using only a single booster pack of trading cards to determine the only Pokemon that I am able to use on my team. Now, I've never played a Legends game before, and I hear that this one is a particularly difficult game to Nuzlocke, so maybe I'll just crack a pack and see how far I can go for now. Speaking of which, not having a camera, I've had to get a bit inventive on this pack opening, so I bought a pack of Mega Evolutions at my local game store and logged into TCG Live, the Pokemon trading card app, to input the code card that comes in every pack to get a virtual pack of Mega Evolutions to open on screen. So, without further ado, let's see who we get. First is Tangela, Pachirisu, Greavard, Jinx, Kadabra, Ninetales, a Stadium card, which I'm not entirely sure how to incorporate, Centiskorch, a Houndstone Illustration Rare, and Mega Gardevoir EX. So with my team set, I started planning out my route, only to find out that Houndstone, while a beautiful card, cannot be found in Legends ZA. Neither can Ninetales, Centiskorch, or Pachirisu. Kadabra I can use, but not Jinx or Tangela. Gardevoir is on the box art, but Greavard is out. And with my last card being a Stadium card, I'm left with only 2 Pokemon for the entire run. So that's obviously not going to work. Why the base set of a TCG based on the Legends game contains almost no Pokemon that are actually in that game, I will never understand. But I guess that leaves me having to find some replacements. So the first Pokemon we drew from the pack was Tangela. So I'll grab the Grass-type Chikorita as my starter. Now, my first fight against Pancham, we learned some very important things. First of all, that our attacks have a cooldown period in Legends. I suppose this is to mimic the turn-based action from mainline games, but also, while one of our attacks is on cooldown, other skills can still be used. So this is going to make every attack on our skill set important, rather than just spamming whichever one attack the opponent is weakest to, like we can get away with on mainline games. But being the first fight in the game, Tangela and I win fairly easily. After another quick fight, I learn about Battle Zone and meet Hotel Z's owner AZ and his 3,000-year-old Floette, who I'm sure I would be fanboying over had I played the original XY games at all. The next morning, Tawny conscripts me to join Team MC, but before I can go out, she forces me into a rival battle. A Totodile is an easy KO since water is weak to grass, and thankfully Tepig doesn't know any fire moves yet, so Tangela holds his own there as well. Next, we learn about Wild Zones, and are given some Pokeballs and our catching tutorial so we can finally catch our second party member. Since Pachirisu was the second card out of the pack, I go for the first electric type I can find, Mareep. But I can't continue on until I register 5 Pokemon in the Pokédex, so back to the Wild Zone to catch more Pokemon, just to put them in a box and never talk about them again. Mabel then hires me to help her research Pokemon because apparently catching 5 Pokemon makes me some kind of prodigy. I don't know. So we'll be getting random side quests from Mabel that I guess I can just ignore. But I do suppose that Rock Smash TM could come in handy if I had a Pokemon that could learn it. So I guess that's what TM slaves are for, right? So we'll use Bunnelby to clear the path back to Hotel Z, and then back in the box it goes. As night falls, it's time to head into the ZA Battle Royale for real. Defeating 3 challengers earns me a ticket into a promotion battle with Zack. Pachirisu, the electric Mareep, is able to take out water-type Slowpoke and flying-type Pidgey with relative ease, but has taken enough of a beating that I swap into Tangela and Chikorita for the final showdown with his Pikachu. And since Grass resists electric, we finish things off, and I almost feel sorry for the guy as we hand Zack his 100th promotion battle loss. The next morning, Tawny wants to show me Prism Tower. So we clear the Mega Crystals away from the ladder and make our way across the rooftops, collecting Mega Shards as we go, until we drop down right next to Wild Zone number 2. Well, since we're here, Budu or Kakuna, both being poison types, would really help me out in the next promotion match. However, there's nothing in my pack that would warrant them joining the party, so unfortunately I just have to continue on. Tawny continues taking me on a tour of the city, even picking a fight with another team, the Fists of Justice, who want to take down the Wild Zones. Pachirisu holds his own against the Machop fairly well, but gets knocked down to 1 HP, and I have to swap in Tangela to get him off. Then Jose throws out Meditite, which I'm initially worried about, until I remember Tangela has a Fairy-type move in Disarming Voice, which Meditite is weak to. But finding ourselves outside of Wild Zone 3, I hop on in to find my Psychic-type replacement for Jinx, Esper. Next, we find ourselves at Emma's detective agency, and it seems that she needs my help too. But since she has an Esper of her own, how can I refuse? So we take on a few side missions involving beating up a giant Bunnelby to find out that it's a special Alpha type of Pokemon, catching a Pikachu for a store clerk so that we can learn more evolution methods such as using a Thunderstone, and finding some old lady's ring in a graveyard turned wild zone, which I may have to come back to later. Now once we've done all of our work for her, Emma rewards us with a Pokemon battle. The Jinx handles her Mareep with ease, and she then tells us about the phenomenon of Mega Evolution, and even gives us a demonstration with her Ampharos. Once night falls though, the battle zones are open. In the process of getting points for my next calendar ticket, Pachirisu evolves into a Flappy, and shortly after getting my ticket, Tangela evolves into a Bailey, which leaves just the Challenger Yvonne standing in my way. Now Jinx handles her Spritzy fairly well, and I swap to Pachirisu as she brings out Swirlix. Once again, it seems an easy enough victory, and I bring out Tangela as she brings her Ace Resilient. A Grass type versus Bug type is bad, right? But Tangela has learned Rock Smash, which the Flying Bug type should be quad weak to. Except I guess things work differently in Legends, because what should have been a one-hit KO, even through a light screen, instead does almost no damage at all, and Tangela gets decimated by Gust. Tossing Jinx out just to shoot down light screen panels, she eventually dies as well, leaving just me and Pachirisu. Thankfully, light screen falls off in time for a charged Thundershock to finish the fight, but leaving me with only one Pokemon. And since I'm not taking the bean out with only one Mon, I think it's safe to call this a wipe. But I don't want to end my first playthrough of this game 10 minutes in, so like I said at the beginning, let's peel back some of those Nuzlocke rules and just see what the rest of the game holds. So she leads off with Spinnerack, and I swap to Tangela for the super effective Rock Smash. which does nothing. Again. What is it with bugs being immune to rock in this game? Alright, so Tangela dies to the bug instead of the other way around. Again. And nearly kills Pachirisu too, which leaves just Jinx versus Sableye, which I stand no chance at all, and just full on KO. So I'm toast on this run, even with using revives. So I actually strategized this time, leading off with Jinx. Wait, Pachirisu? Wait, no, I put Jinx first in my party. Why did... You know what? Whatever. Pachirisu kills Spinarak. But Sableye meets Tangle. Jinx? That's not who I wanted either. Oh my god, why is this such a mess? Can I please go back to turn-based games? So Jinx dies again, and Tangela comes in to back clean, finishing the fight with Scraggy's quad weakness fairy moves with Disarming Voice, just to end my pain. But there is no rest for the weary, as my next promotion battle is decided. So it's back to the battle zones for me, except I have one stop to make first. But back in Wild Zone 4, where I found that lady's ring, I noticed a lot of Ghastly floating around, which would make a great replacement for Griever. Of course, now I have to level him up a bit to match the rest of my team, but hey, that's what battle zones are for. So, learning my lesson in the last fight, I take my time going into the Rank X promotion match. I study my team, my opponent's team. I learned that Rock Smash is actually a fighting move, not a rock move. And I lead with Grievard against his Venipede, who makes use of its weakness to psychic moves with Fusion. I then swap into Jinx in preparation for his Roselia, except he tosses Kadabra out instead. Now, because this is an action-based game instead of turn-based, I don't register the change of plan, and Jinx dies, followed by Griever, until my intended Kadabra counter Tangela comes out to finish him off. But with my Roselia counter now already dead, Tangela falls, and for some reason I'm still not entirely sure of, all of Pachirisu's cooldowns end up taking legitimately forever, and I have no choice but to look on in impotence as I lose again. Not to be deterred though, I try again with Griever taking out his Venipede, but this time knowing that Kadabra is next, I bring in Tangela, who can take it down with Razor Leaf and Giga Drain. Next up, Jinx meets the Roselia that she was supposed to counter the first time, and does her job well with Psybeam and Confusion. His ace Furfrou was going to be a bit tougher though, as he is only weak to fighting types, of which I have none. I lead with Growl to lower the incoming damage before charging up to do as much Thundershock damage as I can. Unfortunately, Pachirisu can't hold out, but does get another Growl in before going down. I then run the rest of my team out, starting with Griever, just to get in as much damage as I can, chipping away as Mon after Mon dies, leaving just Tangela, who is weak to Fire Fang, but gets Giga Drain off in time to just barely finish the fight. The next morning, Lida leaves her things at the hotel, so I have to go find her to give them back. And she thanks me with a Pokemon battle. Thankfully, I'm in a pretty solid position, as Pachirisu's electric moves counter Quantum's water type, and Tangela knows Rock Smash, which Vanilla Ice type is weak to. But I end up doing more damage with Giga Drain anyway. And when we get to her ace, well, Tangela's grass attacks make quick work with the water type Staryu. On the way to our next promotion match, we head through Wild Zone 5 to find an Abra, do a bit of training to evolve him into the Kadabra from our pack, and hit up the Battle Royale to get my Challenger ticket. I then go on a little walkabout, hunting down the TMs for Toxic, Icy Wind, and Dig, all to prepare for my promotion battle against Rintaro. He uses all three Simics, starting with Simic Sage, and all three of his Pokemon know the Dark move Bite, which will destroy any Psychic or Ghost types, but Protect will block that if timed properly. The Grievard is able to get off Toxic and do some good damage with Icy Wind, before Bite comes off cooldown and takes him out. I let the Toxic tick damage a bit before tossing in my next Pokemon Tangela to finish him off. I preemptively put out Pachirisu, expecting him to bring out Simisear against my Grass type, but he goes for Simi4 instead. So I swap Tangela back in, defeating him without too much issue, and when Simisear comes out, I bring Pachirisu back in, because he's the only Pokemon I have that can learn Dig, which the Fire type is weak to. He doesn't quite get the job done, however, leaving Simisear at a sliver of HP, so I bring Tangela back in, nicely tanking a hit before landing a Giga Drain to finish off the match and earn Jinx's evolution into a Meowstic. Once we step outside the cafe, we meet Zygarde in its 10% or dog form, who leads us up to the top of a roof where an Absol is undergoing a rogue Mega Evolution. AZ sends his Lucario up to help me fight it, and we get a tutorial on how to Mega Evolve, after which the Absol forces himself onto my team. Now, because one tutorial isn't enough, Connie then forces me into a battle in which I have to use the Mega Evolved Absol against her Mega Manectric. But with all that out of the way, he goes into the box for good, and I go back to Wild Zone 3 for my next real party member, Ninetales. Afterwards, we head to Quasartico HQ, taking out a pair of Dedenne acting as guards, for a meeting with Vinny, who wants to conscript us to help with quelling other rogue megas, and rigs the Battle Royale to let us skip more than a dozen ranks if we beat him as our next promotion battle. Back to Battle Zones then. Along the way, Greavard evolves into a Haunter, and Pachirisu evolves into an Ampharos. So Vinny leads off with Houndoom, and I start with Ninetales, and these super effective vehicles. Between that and Earth Power, Houndoom goes down, and his Sharpedo is next, to which I bring out Tangela and Razor Leaf into Oblivion. Lanieri I don't have a tight matchup for, so I just bring out Pachirisu and beat it down with neutral damage, forcing Vinny's ace, Mega Trample. I start off with Greavard and the super effective fairy attack Dazzling Gleam that I picked up in Wild Zone 7. But he's not able to get the job done though, and I have to bring out Kadabra to finish things off. After the battle, he starts feeding us information about where rogue megas are likely to pop up, and AZ gives us Meganiumite to Mega Evolve Tangela. And since Mega Slowbro is weak to grass types, evolving Tangela into a Meganium seems the best course of action. The fight goes pretty much how you would expect, as Tangela tanks pretty much anything this guy throws at us. I, on the other hand, am not so lucky and nearly died multiple times. I gotta say though, I wasn't expecting this fight to take that long, and I have no idea how I'm gonna survive these other battles. Next, I go after Camerupt, who should be the hardest of the three, as I have no water types and very few Pokemon that can ground moves. So I start off with Greavard, attempting to get off some sort of particular hit, like Toxic or Curse, both of which he seems immune to. So I spend the next 20 minutes running around, taking pot shots with my Pokemon to chip away at his massive health pool, unfortunately losing Kadabra in the process, but ultimately letting Lida do most of the heavy lifting. As you see, while I am trying to not use items in combat, Lida is under no such obligation, and keeps pumping revives into her water types, letting me run around, avoiding as much damage as possible, until eventually the behemoth goes down. So I guess maybe there is hope for this run. I go into the Victory Bell fight with a little more confidence, and I lead off with Greavard, figuring that grass is weak to poison, and Toxic will make this fight a breeze. Except it has no effect. That's okay. Grass is also weak to fire, and I have Will-O-Wisp, which also has no effect. So I spend another 15 minutes running around, taking pot shots, and trying to avoid puddles of goo on the ground. Except I'm really bad at this, and Reavard dies. Continuing with my lineup, Jinx comes out to take pot shots, getting low enough that I swap in Kadabra, and even after reviewing this footage, I'm still not entirely sure how he dies. And because I'm bad, I sent my grass starter against the poison type, and yeah, well, that happened too. But I did eventually whittle Victory Bell's HP down and finish out the fight without any additional casualties. When we get back to the hotel, some mysterious gent, who I'm sure I would immediately recognize had I played the original XY games, tells us that the legendary Pokemon Zygarde wants a battle. I find out that this one is able to be poisoned, so basically I just wait around until he dies and gives me his most prized possession, a completely unremarkable tiny pebble that will have absolutely no significance later on. I find out that my next promotion match is against the popular streamer Canary, but Naveen, being a superfan, won't tell me how to find her without a battle first. Ninetales takes out her Ariados pretty easily, and when Sableye comes in, I swap in Pachirisu, who has that dazzling Green PM from Wild Zone 7, which it is weak to. And her Ace Scrafty is so weak to fairy moves that he is down almost before he even comes out. In addition to Naveen, we take out a few more trainers in the Battle Royale to get my Challenger ticket, evolving Ninetales into a Pyroar along the way, and finally we make it to our showdown with Canary. Okay, well, after we participate in her quiz show, defeat her oldest and most greasy fan, find and battle her grandfather that runs the construction crew, only to find out that he's been catfishing her entire fan base before she finally gets off of her computer to square up with him. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of prep for this battle aside from equipping whatever ground moves I had, like Dig on Jinx. But it only does about half HP to Heliolisk, so I try to finish it off with my other attacks, but Volt Switch keeps breaking my target lock, so I'm not able to continuously issue commands, and she ends up getting like 5 turns in a row or something stupid that would never happen in a turn-based setting. So I bring out Reavard to finish it off, and put a burn on her next Pokemon, which happens to be Stunfisk. Now, I was not expecting a discharge to hit quite that hard though, and Reavard also falls. Now, without any higher strategy than just tossing out my next Pokemon, Kadabra gets some decent damage off before meeting the same fate. Ninetales comes out next with some actual ground moves to finish it off, and actually put up a fight when Ampharos almost kills me. But I swapped to Pachirisu in the nick of time, taking it out in the mirror match. Canary then pulls out her ace Electros and Mega Evolves. And I try to get one last dig off, but apparently it wasn't my turn, and Pachirisu falls as well. But I still have my ace up my sleeve, and I Mega Evolve Packlocke, who is resistant to electric attacks, and knows the super effective Bulldoze, quickly finishing off the match. So the next morning, we get another call from Vinny that 3 more spots are ripe with Mega Energy for us to check out. But first, I need to find my Centiskorch. Now, there's no Fire Bug type to be had in Lumiose, and I already have a Fire type, so I suppose the Bug Fighting type Heracross will have to do. Heading across the rooftops, we find a Beedrill undergoing Rogue Mega Evolution. As Bug types are weak to fire, I lead with Ninetales, who does a great job of wearing it down, but eventually takes enough damage that I have to swap her out. Kadabra comes in for the second half, as Beedrill's poison typing makes it weak and psychic, and there's really not much to say about this fight other than mopping up ads and dodging giant Nimbus. It's a pretty easy fight. Next, we track down the Hawlucha that is about to go rogue, and as it turns out, fighting types like Hawlucha are also weak to Psychic. So Kadabra gets some major work done before taking enough damage that I have to swap out. But not being lacking for Psychic types in this pack, Jinx is winning the wings, and it's not terribly long before the rooftops are safe again. Mega Banette, however, will absolutely destroy my Psychic types, so I lead with Ninetales instead. Now it takes me a bit to figure out the gimmick for this fight, namely that Banette will keep making clones of itself, but eventually Ninetales' HP whittles down to the point that I have to swap out with Pachirisu. By now I've realized that the real Banette is the one without an HP bar, so I focus on finding and attacking just that one. I do have to swap again, bringing in Tangela, which is when I noticed that the main Banette is also glowing with Mega Energy, and I began to wonder if it had been doing that the entire time, or just as it was getting critically beat. Anyway, back at the hotel, I get a ping from the Battle Royale app giving me my next promotion match against Ivor of the Fists of Justice, who we haven't heard anything about since meeting them that one time about 7.5 minutes into the video. Anyway, I'm sure you know what this means by now. Of course, getting him to battle me involves a lengthy side quest to find his sister, including rematches with Jose and Canary, running around town with Emma the detective, using that Absol from earlier to ice beam a fountain to open up the sewers, capturing a Klefki to unlock a door, only to have Ivor punch it down instead, and finally beating up said sister, or at least her Pokemon, before she will come back with us to actually start the promotion. Now with a full team of fighting types, I basically just load up any Psychic or Fairy moves I have, and toss out Greavard against his Heracross. Now the two were pretty evenly matched, and in the end ended up killing each other at the same time. Jinx was up next against his Metachamp, and with a full set of super effective fairy moves at her disposal, Jinx clearly came out the victor, and I swapped into Centiskorch for the next fight. The champ came out, and I felt fairly confident until he got multiple hits in a row, and my bug got squished. Now, Kadabra came out to finish the champ off, but took a big hit in the process. And Ivor's Mega Phalanx hits a lot harder than I was expecting, taking Kadabra out in just one move. But I have Tangela waiting to Mega Evolve, and a single super effective Dazzling Gleam is enough to secure my promotion. Now the next morning, right on cue, we get a phone call from the mob. Apparently Tawny borrowed some money, and now somehow that's my problem. On the way to the Rust Syndicate, I pull the next card from my pack, the beautiful Full Art Houndstone, and head to the newly opened Wild Zone 15 to find a Shuppet, who without any additional training needed, is already high enough level to evolve into a Banette. When we get there, Leaf won't let us in though until we fight him in a Pokemon battle. But all of his Pokemon are Steel types, which means that Ninetales can run through them pretty quickly. His Mega Skarmory is super fast though, getting enough shots in to take the damage. But Pachirisu is able to quickly mop up. We finally get a meeting with the big boss, and he agrees to forego all the interest on the loan if we do some odd jobs for him. And on top of that, Vinny calls and there's 3 more Pokemon about to go rogue. The Mega Mawile is weak to fire and ground, so I lean on Ninetales here to get the job done. Mawile jumps around a lot, but nothing too serious, and every now and then jumps outside of the arena to shoot energy spheres at me. I return Ninetales to a Pokeball so she doesn't get hurt as I dodge around, and then go back to beating up Mawile, rinse and repeat for a few minutes, easy peasy. Mega Barbaracle is weak to just about everything, So I lead with Tangela, mostly because he can Mega Evolve to extra damage and help switch up the fight. Barbarical seems to be more interested in chasing me around though, and with Giga Drain helping to heal back any incidental damage he takes, Tangela is able to tank the whole fight pretty much himself. Before we can get to the third Mega though, Wind forces us into a rematch. A Centiskorch gets a flinch with Night Slash on Vanette and takes it down without a scratch. He wasn't so lucky with 4 guys, but got the job done anyway. A Gengar starts off with Toxic, giving me a free hit, and that's 3 mons down with just Centiskorch. I was going to swap out to Houndstone and go Mega vs Mega, but Chandelure got off a critical Shadow Ball and took him out in one go. So I brought Centiskorch back in because he can Mega as well, only to get one-shot by Psychic. In Alert, I just started throwing out anything I had, getting Greavard killed as well, before Ninetales comes out and finishes things off for me. Finally making it to Mega Ampharos, I figure it would be fun to throw out Pachirisu and have him earn his Mega Stone the old-fashioned way, mano a mano. Now, he was doing a pretty good job of it too, taking pot shots with a host of super effective moves, but ultimately taking enough incidental damage that when I pulled him in for Ampharos' Mega attack, that when I was done dodging all the electric bolts running around the arena, I brought out Tangela to finish things off. With his ability to Mega Evolve and heal through Giga Drain, it just made the fight that much easier to wrap up. We finally make it back to the hotel and ready to relax when the boss himself gives me a call. Apparently, he's ready to cash in that favor. We need to clear out some troublemakers out of an old building. We get to the location to find out that this guy can't move in because a group of Gengar have taken up residence. To clear them out, I have to engage in a 3-on-1 battle, which a Houndstone should be up to. Now, since the only way I can evolve Greavard, my Haunter, into a Gengar is via trade evolution, and I have nobody to trade with, I capture one of these Gengar to use as his final evolution. Now, his next task for me is to clear out some Mega Clusters that have infected part of the sewers. So I bring out Greavard's new evolution to break the needed crystals and get him some extra experience. After that simple task, the boss meets us in person to give us our third job for him. Apparently, there are some outsiders encroaching on his turf. It turns out what he means is there are some know-it-alls from the Society of Battle Connoisseurs telling a group of kids how best to battle, whether they want their advice or not. So first, Francois challenges me with a pair of Dragon types. As they are weak to fairy moves, I use Jinx. Between Moonblast and Disarming Voice, his Gabite goes down after taking about half of her HP, and when his Sliggoo comes out next, we rinse and repeat. Jinx does have the firepower to finish out the fight, but unfortunately, she goes down at the same time. Vivica rushes in next with her fairy types, and oddly enough, because Jinx died, I'm now able to lead immediately with my pick for this fight, the newly evolved Greavard. Between Sludge Wave and Poison Jab, his poison moves are able to take care of Aromatwice, but he takes quite the beating in the process. Her Slurpuff comes out, and I'm concerned that he might not make it, but Sludge Wave hits super hard, and he comes out on top. The pair threaten to call in reinforcements to deal with me when Corbeau shows up to put them in their place and get them out of his. Then a commotion nearby draws his attention, and we rush off to find Tawny trying to protect the president of Quasartico from an unruly mob. The mob leader decides to throw down against me and Corbeau in a very unfair 2v1 fight. But honestly, I'm not sure how much help my Pachirisu really needed. Yeah, Corbeau's Scolipede does make a good tank, but Pachirisu's Fire Punch and Power Gem destroy this guy's bits. Onyx is out next and goes down very quickly to Flash Cannon, and Shillelagh, his last Pokemon, being weak to all three types, doesn't stay out very long either. After watching me fighting alongside me, Corbeau decides to call me back to his office and make good on his promises to forgive all of the accrued interest on Tawny's loan. But he also has some ulterior motives, namely that he now wants a no-holds-barred battle against me, and suddenly, I get a ping on my ZA Royale app showing that my next promotion match is going to be against none other than Corbeau himself. How convenient. Corbeau calls it fate, but I'm left wondering how much this fate might have cost him. Anyway, in order to start the match, I need a challenger ticket. So it's back to battle zones. Having already seen Scolipede, I'm anticipating a lot of poison types, which Greavard will be immune to as a poison type himself. But poison types like Corbeau's Arbok are weak to Psychic TM that I found in Wild Rift 11. I bring out Pachirisu next to meet his Gyarados, who is 4 times weak to Electric, and goes down with 1 Thunder attack. Now since Roserade is a Grass type, I bring in Ninetales to burn it down. With a high special defense though, it does take a little bit, but I'm not overly worried. For his ace Scolipede, I bring out Centiskorch, who has the ability to Mega Evolve, as he Mega Evolves his Scolipede as well. With plenty of rock and flying attacks at his disposal though, it doesn't take long before I rank up again. Now that night, Corbeau decides to check into Hotel Z, and the next morning he gives Tawny a very considerable tip, right before his bouncer comes in to demand her loan repayment, which she just so happens to have on hand now. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not entirely sure that this mob is mobbing correctly. Anyway, AZ comes up after they leave to give Naveen and Lita Mega Rings of their own, so that they can Mega Evolve their Pokemon too. And what's their first thought? Why, to beat up on me, of course. But Lita has a thing for water types, so I start with Tangela, who takes out her Clawser fairly efficiently. Ninetales comes out next, anticipating her Vanillish, but a Molga comes out instead. I quickly switch to Centiskorch, who buries her with a rapid fire Rock Blast, bringing out Ninetales for Vanillish. The Ice Cream Cone melts under her Heat Wave, and only Lita's Ace is left. I bring out Pachirisu with a super effective Thunderbolt to end the match. Now, Naveen is up next, and I do have time to change some things around, so Centiskorch comes out first this time, using his Rock Boost against Naveen's Ariados. Pachirisu is next against his Sableye, as he knows Dazzling Gleam, a super effective fairy type. But since it just barely survives, I have to finish it off with a Thunder attack. I bring out Tangela next against Naveen's Krookodile, and sure, maybe Mega Evolving early is a cheap shot, but it lets me take the Gator out as she Mega Evolves her Scrappy for the first time. Having loaded Tangela up with fairy moves though, which Scrappy is quad weak to, he doesn't stay that way for long. After a hard-fought battle, we decided to go get some lunch when we are interrupted by someone from the Society for Battle Connoisseurs. You know, those pompous pricks that were bullying children. Turns out they're inviting me to their next party. Or else. Lita says that we can't go to a gathering of the city's elite dressed like we are, so we need to go shopping. But first, I need to find the last Pokemon from my pack. So I run around the city until I find a little alcove where Ralts like to hang out. To make her like me, I feed her tons of candy until she evolves into Kirlia, and after a lot more candy, into a Gardevoir. We then head over to the Boutique Couture, and the owner wants to see a Mega Pokemon in action, so I bring out Houndstone and Mega Evolve, taking out her Florges with a single Mega Gunshot. She is so appreciative that she just gives me the outfit. And now I look like a cheap 80s motel wall. As we're enjoying the party though, we get a call from Vinny that there are more Pokemon about to go rogue, and we have to leave only for Jacinthe to follow us, insisting that we come back to the party for her private tournament. But we have more important things to do right now. We track our first rogue mega to the rooftops of Lumios, and even though ghost types like Frostlass are weak to other ghost types like Reaver and Houndstone, I don't want to use them here because they will also be weak to Frostlass. Instead, I bring out Ninetales to attack her ice typing with fire. Every now and then, I bring her back into her Pokeball to dodge Frostlass's mega attack, where she brings icicles crashing down into the arena, followed by a powerful blizzard that will freeze anyone not hiding behind one of them. But it's pretty rinse and repeat after that, and ultimately a pretty easy fight, as Ninetales takes her down with barely any damage at all. Heading next to Mega Altaria, as a dragon type, I bring fairy attacks to counter. Now I could use Tangela here, but decide to give my newest member Gardevoir her time to shine. There's really not much to say about this fight, as it's your typical run around, dodging tornadoes until its mega attack phase, and then sending Gardevoir back out to punch in as much damage as you can in between, until Mega Altaria eventually goes down. Jacinthe pops back in after the battle, using her holograms to keep an eye on me, and pressure me back into her tournament. But I've still got one more rogue to face. Being part poison type, Mega Venusaur is weak to psychic types, and I certainly have no shortage of those in this battle. I lead with Jinx, pelting him with psychic attacks until I can feel out his attack pattern. A Mega Venusaur likes to shoot out brambles that I need to avoid, and then when he goes into his Mega phase, he does some kind of Mega Leech Seed, which unfortunately Jinx gets caught in and absorbs. After the Leech Seed, he goes into a Mega Solar Beam type attack that is easy enough to scrape him away from. Sending out Kadabra next, I continue to pelt away with psychic attacks, pulling him into the Mega Leech Seed and Solar Beams, until Venusaur catches me off guard while in critical health, switching up his attack pattern, and coming out with a second Leech Seed when I wasn't expecting it, and Kadabra goes down as well. I follow up with Gardevoir, my third Psychic type, who is able to continue pelting him with Psychic attacks, and finally finishing him off. When we get back to the hotel, Jacinthe wraps it in a battle zone, and won't let it drop until we fight her minions. The first one is weak to fire, so we bring out Ninetales, who quickly melts the Mawile, followed closely by her Telephus. Her second minion has dragon types, so fairy types like Gardevoir deal with his Dragonair quickly, and his Shelgon doesn't fare much better. And finally, Lebane herself challenges, once again using dragon types. But this time, Gardevoir takes a beating by Noivern before finally taking it out. Draining Kiss on Garchomp restores a lot of HP, but I wasn't expecting Iron Head to hit quite that hard, and Gardevoir goes down. I bring Jinx out next, who gets a little bit of damage off, but ultimately gets eaten himself. With no other choice, I bring out the big gun, Tangela. Dazzling Gleam does a huge chunk of damage, and Synthesis heals a lot back, but Dragon Claw does a huge chunk of damage before Gleam comes off cooldown and takes him out. But Lebane is not done yet, as Tyrantrum comes out. But since Synthesis is still on cooldown, Tangela goes down before he's really able to do much of anything. And Pachirisu is out next, with Earthquake doing a huge chunk of damage to him, and Dazzling Gleam doing a bunch back. It really comes down to the wire, but Pachirisu is able to take the T-Rex down. Her Mega Dragalge is the next, and I'm out of options. So I swap in Kadabra, who gets a Psychic in before Protection comes up, but she retaliates with a huge Sludge Bomb as I use Future Sight. Dragon Pulse does take Kadabra out, but before I can throw out another Pokemon as Dragon Fodder, Future Sight hits, and hits hard enough to finish the battle. Having broken through her battle zone, we get a ping from our ZA Royale app that we've been assigned a new promotion match. And wouldn't you know it, our promotion match is against none other than Jacinthe herself. Funny how that works. Oh well, only one thing to do. We head back to face Jacinthe, but all she wants is to host her little tournament. So if I want to fight her, I'll have to win it all. Round 1 is against Canary, and I lead with Centiskorch, who takes out her Heliolisk with a single close combat. Greavard is next against her Stunfisk, with Icy Wind doing decent damage, but we have to move him out of the Stealth Rocks or else he'll take continuous damage. Eventually I'm able to work her down and take her out. Pachirisu comes out next against her Ampharos, and I think I'm all clever by teaching mine Dig. It doesn't hit nearly as hard as I was hoping though, and I have to rely on Dazzling Gleam and resisted electric moves to whittle her down. Her ace Mega Electros comes down, and I Mega Evolve Tangela to even things out. The Mega Earthquake does a lot of damage, and it's just a few more hits before I complete round 1. My round 2 opponent is Ivor. I lead Pachirisu against his Heracross, and Dazzling Gleam does a decent amount of damage. It's not too long before he goes down, and I swap in Tangela versus his Champ. Once again, Dazzling Gleam does some good damage, but the Champ is so bulky, I have to cycle through the rest of my attacks to finally bring it down. Poundstone comes out next against his Metachamp, which is weak to Dazzling Gleam sure, but also ghost attacks like Phantom Force, which KOs him easily. I meet his ace Mega Phalanx with my very own Greavard, Mega Evolved of course. A single Dazzling Gleam almost takes him out completely, and I proceed to the next round. I start with Greavard this time against Corbo's Arbok, and Psychic takes a good chunk of HP, letting me clean up easily. Gyarados is next with his Quad weakness to Thunder, and goes down as well. Roserade similarly is weak to Fire, which Ninetales has in abundance, and finally I Mega Evolve Centiskorch to meet his Mega Scolipede. He is able to protect against my Rock Slide, but Rock Blast does a pretty good chunk of damage, allowing Rock Slide to finish him off once it's off cooldown. Before we can face Jacinthe though, the party gets crashed by Lysander and Zygarde, who wants to duel me again. Zygarde grows into his 50% form, and I figure Greavard should be able to handle this pretty easily, as he has both Icy Wind and Dazzling Gleam, which Zygarde's Dragon typing is weak to. Neither one do nearly the damage I was hoping for, and I don't know what kind of move Land's Wrath is, but it hits like a truck, and Greavard goes down. Not wanting to take any chances, I send out Tangela and Mega Evolve. While his hits aren't doing much more damage than Greavard did, he is able to tank hits better, and with some back and forth, Zygarde eventually goes down. Lysander then says some ominous things about Zygarde being incomplete, and he has to collect more Zygarde cells, and I have to become a trainer worthy of standing beside it. But heaven forbid he should give us a straight answer about what's going on here. But I can't be bothered with all that fate of the world stuff. I have a promotion battle that is long overdue. Jacinthe starts out with Carbink, and Tangela is my choice here because Iron Tail and Earthquake make quick work of it. Stepping out of the Stealth Rocks, I bring out Ninetales to obliterate her Mawile, and swap back to Tangela for Auroras. Between Leaf Storm and Iron Tail, I'm able to take it out, even though I do get hit pretty hard with Blizzard. For her Gardevoir, I bring out Houndstone, who almost one-shots her with Phantom Force, but quickly cleans up in preparation for her ace. She Mega Evolves her Clefable, which gives it the Flying type that my Mega Evolved Pachirisu can now take advantage of with some heavy-hitting Thunder attacks. And just like that, I'm ranked E, with only one more to go. At dinner, we talk about what Zygarde's appearance could mean, and decide to ask AZ, but he's up on the roof musing about something that happened 3,000 years ago. It seems like Prism Tower is causing some kind of unease, and his Floette is the only one that can control it, but it will only respond to the strongest Mega user. In the midst of all this info dump, we get a phone call from Vinny asking us to meet the president at Quizartico. Turns out that Prism Tower is emitting all of this Mega energy, drawing more and more Pokemon into Lumio City, but nobody can really tell us how or why when Vinny comes back with news that 3 more Pokemon are about to go rogue. We respond first to Mega Dragonite, who is weak to Fairy like all dragons, so I bring out Gardevoir. Everything goes pretty smoothly at first, taking little pot shots while waiting for his Mega Phase, in which he spawns a tornado that slowly follows me and drops lightning bolts down around the arena. Easy enough to dodge, and when it's over, we go back to putting damage on it. When he goes below half HP though, his Mega Phase changes a bit. The tornado still comes up, but instead of shooting lightning bolts, he begins absorbing energy for a long-range attack that explodes to hit the entire arena. After which he jumps around the arena, causing an impact tremor whenever he hits, and shooting out little flamethrower attacks, which I get caught up in and die. On my second attempt though, I figure out that his absorption phase can actually be interrupted by keeping Gardevoir in the fight and just hitting him hard enough. In that case, instead of shooting a single giant beam into the center, he shoots smaller beams all across the arena, but since I hadn't had time to put Gardevoir back in her Pokeball, she gets hit by one of these and dies. I send Scorch out next as Dragonite's flying type makes him weak to rock, and put as much damage as I can, pushing him into red HP and changing things up again. This time Dragonite starts hopping around the arena, chasing me so much that I can barely get an attack off, and since Scorch is following right behind me, he ends up taking a lot of splash damage and ends up dying as well. Not to be deterred, I send out Jinx with a host of fairy attacks himself, chipping away as Dragonite goes into another Mega Phase, only this time as he's absorbing energy, I do enough damage to not only stun him, but take him down entirely. Next we respond to Mega Tyranitar, who is weak to fighting and bugs, which means that Scorch is my man here. Right before going into his Mega Phase, Tyranitar puts up sand traps that I need to avoid because they'll do ticking damage to any Pokemon inside, while shooting out lines of spikes that are easy enough to scrape out of. I think that having Scorch using close combat here may have been a mistake, because while it does do good damage, it also lowers my defense, and he takes enough damage that I have to swap him out, bringing Tangela in. And his grass attacks continue to wear Tyranitar down below half when his Mega Phase changes it. His stone spikes now shoot out in all directions, but are still simple enough to dodge. He also starts doing an earthquake attack that covers most of the arena. In addition, he now covers himself with a sandstorm that does ticking damage to anybody making a close range attack, meaning that Tangela gets worn down enough that I have to swap him out as well and bring in Gardevoir next. Her fairy attacks bring him down into the red zone, which doesn't seem to change up his attack pattern too much, and Gardevoir finally takes him down. Last but not least is Mega Starmie, who is being guarded by Philippe. Now Corbo told him to keep everyone out and take care of things himself should it escalate, and the only way he can let me through without disobeying his boss is if all of his Pokemon are exhausted. Now his team is all Steel types, so I send out Ninetales to burn through them. Literally. He does take some damage along the way though, and Mega Starmie isn't just too fast and finishes her off, forcing out Pachirisu and his lightning attack to end the battle. Finally making it to Mega Starmie, I lead with Houndstone to exploit its weakness to ghost attacks. Mega Starmie does a lot of jumping around the arena, landing with a splash and shooting off various bubble beams, before finally going into its Mega Phase, where it basically just dashes across the arena at you, and then goes back to its normal jumping around attacks. Houndstone is able to do continue whipping down its HP below half. Now, after it gets done charging across the arena, it shoots a water beam at you that is simple enough to dodge if you know that it's coming. But then he continues doing it for quite a while. I'm finally able to get him to low HP when his jumping around crushes Houndstone, and I have to bring out Reaver. But Starmie just won't stop jumping around, and I don't even have the time to get off a single attack before Reaver dies to Mega Starmie's jumping around antics too. I bring out Pachirisu to finish him off, but when he goes into his Mega phase, he skips the Aqua Beam and just dashes back and forth until he hits me enough times to knock me clean out. On my second attempt though, Houndstone lasts all the way into Mega Starmie's red zone before taking enough damage from Starmie jumping around that I swap him out, this time before he dies. Freebird is not so lucky though, as while taking pot shots, he once again goes down to Starmie's daily splash, forcing out Pachirisu, who this time is able to take out the fight. With all the rogue megas calmed down, we meet back up at the hotel, where we ask AZ more about what's going on. But we're interrupted by my ZA Royale app, giving me my next promotion match against a mystery man that calls himself Grisham. We head to Emma's detective agency to try and find out who he is, but she won't tell us unless we're ready to handle whatever happens after. Which means she throws out on us. Ampharos is weak to ground attacks, but gets a Reflect Up in time to not get one shot. Lopunny is up next, and I send Scorch to take advantage of her weakness in fighting types. Her Mawile goes down pretty easily to Ninetales the Flamethrower, and her Lucario meets the same fate seconds later. I bring out Mega Gardevoir for her ace Mega Malamar, and her weakness to fairy attacks like Moonblast, which almost one-shots. Unfortunately, Gardevoir can't stand up against Mega Malamar's dark attacks, and I have to bring out Tangela, who almost dies with poison, but powers through and gets the job done. Emma gives me enough to go on that I'm able to dig up more info on Grisham, finding out that not only does he run a Nouveau Cafe food cart, but he is actually the leader of Team Flare, which was the main antagonist of the original X and Y games. Now he promises to tell me all of his secret plans if I were to meet him at an out-of-the-way location. Smells like a trap to me. Sure enough, his minion Gazelle throws out at me as soon as I get there. Pachirisu can take care of her Talonflame with Zap Cannon, and I send Jinx out anticipating her Camera, but she sends Aerodactyl instead. I bring Pachirisu back out, and another Zap Cannon takes out another one of her Pokemon. I send Jinx out again, but instead of Camera, she sends out Metagross, so I swap in Ninetales with Flamethrower and Heat Wave to come down. Again, I toss out Jinx, and this time Camera is all she has left. Now I've taught Jinx Dig, but she's not a very physical Pokemon, and Water Pulse ends up doing more damage. And it's not long before it's down to her ace, Mega Pyro. But between Brick Break and Rock Blast, Scorch easily puts her fire out. Having overcome Griselle, Grisham has no choice but to tell us of Team Flare and Lysander's attempt to use the ultimate weapon to destroy the world 5 years ago in the original X and Y games, and how it was AZ who started it all. But we don't have to take his word for it. He invites us to explore the old Lysander labs. To do so, we have to turn on the power section by section, use the various warp portals to go to different rooms, and find key cards that will unlock different doors into new areas until finally I find the elevator key that'll take me down to the computer room. Reviewing the files, we learned that AZ created the device to restore life to a Pokemon. But in order to grant life, it has to steal it from another Pokemon first, sending that energy back out into the deceased Pokemon in order to bring it back. But what if Team Flare used a legendary Pokemon as fuel? So they focused on 2 different legendary Pokemon, Xerneas and Yveltal. So Team Flare's thought process was that as life continues to grow, it will spread to cover every inch of the planet, leading to wars about who will be able to live there. And the only way to prevent that carnage then is to reduce the number of people alive now. But that's when Lysander shows up with Zygarde, telling us that 1,000 years after AZ made the ultimate weapon, he made a second device that is currently inside Prism Tower, but only AZ's Floette could activate this second device. So Lysander activated the ultimate weapon instead, but it exploded and he was buried in the rubble, saved by Zygarde. But activating the weapon also awakens the device inside Prism Tower, which will eventually go rogue itself, and Zygarde will need to be at full power in order to stop it. Now back topside, Grisham tells us to bring AZ's Floette to him so that when he wins the ZA Royale and becomes the strongest Mega user, he can restrain the device within Prism Tower and save all of Lumios. Back at Hotel Z, AZ tells us his side of the story that yes, 3,000 years ago, there was a massive war in which his Floette was killed. After bringing her back, he was still so full of rage that he turned his device into the ultimate weapon to ravage the area, causing his Floette to leave him. In effort to make a device to protect the area rather than destroy, he made the second device Ange, that would share Floette's eternal life. But since the activation of the ultimate weapon 5 years ago, the mega energy contained within Ange has started spilling out, attracting more and more Pokemon and causing them to go rogue. The only solution is for the strongest mega user to bring Floette to Ange. So, I guess I need to get that challenger ticket. As my first real 6-on-6 fight, I need to make sure that every Pokemon counts. So when he leads Pangoro, I meet his 4x weakness with Gardevoir and Hercast. His Malamar, being quad weak to Bug, goes down to Centiskorch and Mega. I don't have a solid match against Pyroar, but Jinx knows Big and Earth Power, but ultimately it's not enough to get the job done. I bring out Tangela to finish him off with an Earthquake, and then work down his Tyranitar with Grass Attack, taking him out as well. I'm shaky on whether Griever can take out his Salamence, even though his Ice Attack do 4 times damage. As it turns out, they end up killing each other at the same time. As he Mega Evolves his Charizard, I purposefully do not, so that I don't take super effective Dragon damage. But this may have been a mistake, as Pachirisu is overwhelmed by his damage and falls. I decide on Gardevoir to take his place, and even though Flare Blitz hits like a truck, her Moonblast is enough to put out his fire for good. That evening, though, there is a massive earthquake, and we rush to the roof to find that Prism Tower is visibly aglow with Mega Energy, and it is time to take Floette to Ange before every Pokemon in the city goes rogue. But it seems like Tawny has also achieved rank A, so to determine which of us is the strongest Mega user, she challenges me to a duel. She leads with Meowstic, but my Houndstone makes use of her Ghost weakness to quickly send her to the afterlife. Next, she brings out Avalugg, which Ninetales is able to easily melt enough of it. She follows up with Mudra, and I don't have a good matchup here, sending Jinx out to pelt her with fairy attacks, but unfortunately she's not up to the task, and I have to bring out Houndstone to finish Mudra off. Tawny brings out Nectric next, which Centiskorch and ground attacks are able to easily handle as we go into the Battle of the Stardust. Tangela is able to easily counter her water-type Alligator, leaving only an M4 left, which is Mega Evolves. He takes the first move to bulk up, and I punch as much damage as I can with Mega Gardevoir, barely surviving the Stone Edge before proving that I am the strongest Mega user and worthy of taking Floette through the tower to Ange. But even though I won the fight, Tawny wants to go into the tower with Floette anyway. So Tawny Mega Evolves Floette, and off they go. Mega Floette absorbs all of the Mega Energy, but then appears that Floette somehow melds with the tower, and the whole thing goes berserk. And what's worse, it's causing Pokemon all over the city to go rogue as well. Of the top trainers of the city all crash our strategy session as we try to find a way that I can get to Zygarde, who is waiting for me across town. First, we come across Ivor and Gwen holding off a rogue Kangaskhan, Pidgeotto, and Garchomp. After helping them out, we find Canary and her squad hold up against a Mega Steelix and Blastoise. During the fight, Tarragon and his men build a scaffolding course for me to get up to the next area, where Lebane is holding off Megas Aggron and Salamence. Getting past them, I hurry on to find Corbeau facing off against Megas Gallade and Gardevoir. After the Rust Syndicate helps me get to the rooftops, I chase after Zygarde only to be interrupted by Megas Metagross, Aerodactyl, and Alakazam. Thankfully, Grisham shows up to help me out, and I finally make it to the rooftop where Zygarde is, and with me is the last Zygarde cell he needs for his 100% complete form. While Zygarde flies up to shoot at the tower, I'm left to deal with the flowers sprouting out of the ground. And they have a metric truckload of HP. I notice that the flowers tend to alternate between close and attacks, so I use Jinx to do the same, using Play Rough to dodge range attacks when going close, and Moonblast to shoot from afar when it attacks nearby. That works for a bit, but she ends up taking too much damage, and I swap into Greavard, attempting the same strategy, but he's a delicate puppy, and I have to swap again. Centiskorch is finally able to take out one flower, and this battle is nothing. So I Mega Evolve him, hoping that the extra damage will help speed things along. But he ends up taking a huge hit and ultimately ends up going down. Now I did find that hiding behind this debris at the edge of the map would let me use psychic attacks that don't require a direct line to finally beat the second flower and command Zygarde to attack Hyper Rogue and Floret. But judging by the amount of damage that he does, this is only 1/3 of the total fight. I have to hide under Zygarde's protective shield to dodge and Floet's Light of Ruin. Meanwhile, 2 more flowers spawn. Now I'm able to use the debris at the sides of the map to dodge most of their attacks, but there is one little puddle attack that can still get to me that I have to be aware of. But Phase 2 goes a lot smoother with this little trick, and we're able to command Zygarde again. But the Phase 3 flowers have an attack that doesn't require line of sight either. And while trying to figure out the best way around that, well, I died. Thankfully, this game is pretty forgiving in that when you try again, you start from whatever phase you were on instead of from the very beginning of the fight. So I finally figure out the animation that leads up to this special attack so that I can dodge out of the way, and every now and then have to go back and run under Zygarde's shield. But after the 3rd wave of flowers are trimmed, I can finally use Zygarde's ultimate ability to defeat the Floette Tower. Or so I thought. As Floette powers up Light of Ruin, the pebble that Zygarde gave me magically transform into Zygarde's Mega Stone, and I can now Mega Evolve Zygarde. And here I thought this was just an ordinary rock. We can then use Zygarde's ultimate ability, Nihil Light, to cancel out the beam Light of Ruin and save all of Lucas. So, can I Nuzlocke all of Legends ZA with just a single pack of cards? No. Not a chance. Can't be done. Well, mostly because there's only 54 Pokemon, including evolutions from the Lumiose Pokédex, that are even in the Mega Evolutions set, which equates to about 29% of the set, meaning you could expect to get 2 or 3 Pokemon from any given pack that can even be found in Lumiose City. And there is no way that you're beating this game with only 3 Pokemon. Now, if you substitute for like types like I did here, maybe. I mean, I couldn't, that's for sure. But I'm hardly the best Pokemon player out there. So is it possible? Well, I don't know. Perhaps you could try this challenge yourself and let me know in the comments how it turns out for you. If you want to see a second part of this series, where I use the next Mega Evolution set, Phantasmal Flames, be sure to put a like on this video so that I know there's interest. And be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can get notifications when it comes out. I mean, overall, this was a pretty fun game and I did enjoy it. I wouldn't mind playing it again. And I would certainly recommend it to anybody that likes Pokemon games in general. But I guess, honestly, that kind of does it for me in this video. So, I don't know. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.